SwayamPrabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome students to the online NPTEL course Contemporary Architecture and Design. In the previous two classes, we started discussing about the postmodernist movement, and we discussed about the historicism and high-tech architecture. So, if we look at the timeline of postmodernist movement, from 1980s onwards, mostly the postmodernist movement started, but it's not a hard and fast timeline after historicism, high tech started. It's not like that. So, most of them emerged simultaneously, and many of the cases we have seen in the historicism as well. A few of the styles of architecture, which few of the examples of architecture which falls under historicism was started before, even a few of the examples were before 1980s actually. And because in the modernism phase 3, many of the architectural movement, many like brutalism, metabolism and tensile and shell has some features which was common to postmodern as well as modern, because it was gradually shifting towards the modernist to postmodernist movement after the end of world wars. So, the modernist movement was from 1920s and the 1980s. They have a particular features. So, if we look at the modernist movement, especially the internationalist movement, their particular style was there. And so, in the historicism we have seen, and all this movement which comes under postmodernist movement has their own way of reaction against the modernist architectural style. And they are also different from each other, but these all architecture style which falls under the postmodernist era has the own way of criticizing modernism, and also few of the examples, few of the movements of postmodern, few of the postmodernist movement have taken inspiration from modernism but changed it in their own way. So, in the historicism, what happened, we have seen earlier that they have rejected all this modernist approach of abstraction and contextuality and not blending history with the architecture. So, they have went back to the pre-modern era, which is pre-industrial revolution. They have taken inspiration from post-Renaissance and the before Renaissance architectural style. We have seen how the examples from how visual design from Greek and European architecture and Egyptian architecture was taken, as well as the Gothic architecture's flying buttress was also taken into historicism, which in modernist movement there was absolutely devoid of historic depiction. Only in the initial phases Chicago school was of thought was there, but mostly when we depict the term modernist, if we consider the second phase of modernism, which is internationalism and then monolithic and also Bauhaus. So, these are the high modern, the main characteristics of modernism was here. So, function was predominant, form follows function, and less is more. These concepts were these three movements were manifestation of these concepts. So, historicism opposed that and went to the pre-modern era. But in high tech, we have seen that they have taken inspiration from metabolism, which is part of this late modern era, which has some connection with the when modernism was going towards the postmodernism movement. So, high tech have taken inspiration from a metabolist movement, where the services or the servant becomes the ornamentation, and we will see how neo-modern have taken inspiration from modernism. So, neo-modernism, as the term says, is a new way of looking at modernism. So, there is a connection again. So, historicism crossed the modernism and went back to the pre-modern era. High tech have have taken inspiration and changed modernism so as the neo modern. So they have taken inspiration from modernism but changed it. So we will see how the things which were there in the modernism, like less is more, was changed into neo modernism, but lot of elements of modernism was there in the neo modern phases. But still this is postmodern because of the eclecticism or taking inspiration from different elements and putting more than one visual stylistic thing into the visual board. So we will see a mixture of visual elements into the neo modern phase. So if we look at the photographs here, this is Villa Savoy by Le Corbusier, which is in internationalist movement. So in historicism, this is historicism by Robert Venturi's Piazza d'Italia. We have seen how it has taken inspiration from the flying buttresses which we are seeing in this Notre Dame cathedral in Paris, which is of Gothic style, and these flying buttresses, what you are seeing, has been translated into the contemporary style. So and there was no connection with the modernism with this building, so it went past the modernism and taken the history into the context, where modernism did not consider history, the influence of history into the design. But here, this is the Pompidou Center by Renzo Piano and Richard Rogers. They have taken inspiration from one phase, which is the metabolist movement, like Nagakin Capsule Tower and the Richard Medical Laboratory. So they have the servant and served concept. So the servant spaces were becoming the ornamentation, and but this is an exaggeration of that. And also in the other buildings like Lloyd Building, we have seen all the services were exposed outside, and also there are few examples like Tore Akbar and Norman Foster designs. So these new materials were giving an idea of futuristic architecture. So this new glass, tinted glass, and also the LED lights in Tore Akbar, we have seen how this was changing the facade treatment. But all these perspective was from aesthetic perspective. So this is that's why this aesthetic is having an importance. And if you look at the facade treatment, it's also very it's a lot of elements are there on the facade, so as the other examples from the high-tech architecture. So this high-tech architecture is not talking about the less is more, which was there in the internationalist movement or the high modern era. That's why this becomes falls under the postmodernism, though this has a connection with the late phase 3 modernism. So is the in the neo-modern. In the neo-modern, we will see lot of rectilinearity, use of white, which is the color of color as a pure color, and which we have seen in the modernism. White, black, and gray was the dominant color, as well as the three primary color, which were not there in this example. So in this two postmodernist movement, where they were open to the different colors and mixture of different elements were there. But if we look carefully, there was a duality of the design. So one part of the design is modern, and then it changed into the postmodern style. So if we look at a lot of straight lines and cuboids are creating one part of the design, but other side you will see a lot of curvilinearity is also added, and these facades which are protruding out is creating a visual where form becomes very important, and form becomes the protagonist of the architecture. So these duality of the style, one side is rectilinear, one side is curvilinear, is this concept of neo-modern, where modern is there from and taken from an aspect of postmodernist approach. So there are other postmodernist movement which we will discuss gradually, and they have their own way of looking at modernism, and then the reaction against the modernist approach. So if we take a neo-modern as a style, the neo-modern's architectural features are as follows. So it talks about new simplicity. So what happened generally in this historicism was the first, it started in the beginning of the postmodernism, and there are a lot of elements, as we have seen in the Michael Graves' works, and Philip Johnson's one of the work, and then Roger Moore's work. There were a lot of elements which is supporting the thought of eclecticism. Different materials, different colors are creating one visual palette. So there was a garish design which is there. So then after that, so it's new modern architects thought that modernist was visual vocabulary was they went back to the modernist visual vocabulary. So these two, neo modern and neo modern, started almost on the same time, but neo modern was taken farther, but historicism ended. It's not ended completely, but the number of buildings which started falling within this particular phase was gradually becoming lesser. So they went back to the new simplicity, where they have and for the simplicity they have found the simplicity in the modernism, because before that there was this pre-industrial revolution buildings where there were a lot of ornamentation, because Baroque, Rococo and all this Gothic style mannerism was there. So simplicity for taking inspiration to create a simplistic building, they had to consider the modernist movement, where less is more was a concept, especially in the internationalist movement. So there was a reaction against the complexity and eclecticism of postmodern architecture, which was happening on the same time. So there was other postmodernist architecture like critical regionalism and deconstructivism, which is different. So that time the postmodern architecture, which was going parallelly with the neo-modern, was historicism. This was they're talking about eclecticism and complexity was coming from the historicism, and they opposed that. So it was a reform of modern approach. So a modern approach was taken as the inspiration, but it was not translated as it is. So it changed into the from the postmodernist angle of thought. So neo-modern denotes the time frame when the postmodernist historicism was waning off, or it was fading away, and postmodernist historicism was starting in the beginning, and then gradually it went to the other postmodernist movement, which came after the historicism. Reaction against the predatory result of market economy and capitalism, which was historicism, was about that, because if you look at the historicism, this attraction value of a design which falls under historicism is much more. For example, if you look at this Michael Graves design, which he is designing in the Walt Disney Center, so the Swan Tower, Dolphin Tower, so he's making swans and dolphins. So these are a very popularist approach of design. And then Walt Disney, the target audience were kids, and they will look at the statue of swan and dolphins, and then so these are grabbing attention of attraction very quickly, and there were a lot of colors. So as the other examples of Michael Graves design, which Portland buildings and other buildings, so there are a lot of different colors and a lot of gimmicky elements are there, which is attracting people. So this is a popularist approach of design, and which is following the market economy and capitalism, and it's not a simplistic functionist just for pure function. There was a lot of elements were added, cladding were added, which is just for visual and to attract people's attention. Now neo-modernism is describing a school of thought which is driven from modernism, the minimalist approach of modernism, but it did not become minimal as modernism, because they were from postmodern era, and the postmodern socio-cultural context was different. So the modern minimal thing was added with the duality, and then again the complexity started coming. So it was it was driven out of modernism, as well as it was also criticizing modernism, modernist approach, because it was a postmodernist. They were from a postmodernist context. Now, one of the example of one of the famous designer and architect of neo-modern era was Richard Mayer. So Richard Mayer's most of the work has a similar visual palette, and there was a simile and there was a coherence in his design. So when I will discuss few of this his work, and you will see a visual simile and a pattern, visual design pattern and coherence in his design. Most of his design has a lot of similarity with the modernist approach of design, that's why this neo modern term comes. So this is a new approach of modernism. So this the new revival of modernism was also happened in many also before a new revival of a particular design stage, designism was happened before as well. For example, neoclassical, neo-Palladian, and all this was this new way of looking at the particular movement which happened before. So one of the example is New Harmony Athenaeum, which is in Indiana, USA, which is in was designed in 1979, which was in the just in the beginning of the modern postmodernist movement. So this is a visitor center at New Harmony, which is named after Greek Athenaeum, temple of Athena, and which is in Greece, and it's a representative of Richard Mayer architecture style, and many of his architecture style has similarity. So it is one of his earliest work, and he the later work also has a similar visual palette. So this design is based on the modernity and the critical refinement. So we, in his design, we will see a duality. One is coming directly from the modernist approach, and one is the critical refinement of modernity and the approach which is coming from the postmodern. So the modernity which is there, so this is the building. We will describe why this building, what is the duality of the modern of this design, and how the modernist and postmodernist is blending and amalgamating with each other. So this is the extensive use of white color, as we have discussed. The white color is coming from the modernist movement, and postmodernism is not about just one particular color. So there will be a mixture of different color, but the color is coming from the modernism. Now, use of predominant rectilinear design element, that is also coming from the postmodernism. So predominant rectilinear cuboidal design is a postmodern design, and the new material is also the postmodern design. The material palette, which is similar to the internationalism, this steel and glass and white color, these are the colors which are coming from the internationalist. Mostly this modernity, when we are talking about the internationalist modernity, because Art Deco is also modernism, but here it's coming from the second phase of modernism, which is internationalist movement. Now the criticism is the criticism, not the criticism of this building, the criticism of modernity is how he is doing it by the duality of the design. Now in this design, throughout this design, you will look at a lot of duality in the design. So one side you will see a lot of solid element which is added, and one side you will see a void. So as the previous example, there was this charge, Jubilee charge, where there's one side is a rectilinear, one side is a curvilinear. So here in this side you will see solid, and there are a lot of void. Through these void you will see different spaces. So here your eye will have one solid, I will see one solid plate, but here when you look at this, so I will go through, pass through this void and punctuation. So a lot of different punctuation on different layers were added. So here this punctuation is through the nature, and here this punctuation is from outside to interior. So different punctuation levels of punctuation is added in this side, and also the dynamic line, which is, if you look at this line, it is continuation of this. These dynamic broken lines are there, which is not modern. Modern will be less is more, which is just few lines, and that creates a modern modernism. But here there are a lot of lines and lot of punctuations, lot of solid play of solid and void, and actually in this building you will see a lot of elements which is combining. So that is going against the concept of modernity. Now here in this composition also you will see a duality in the design. So if you look at the visual frame of the design, if this is the center line, on this side you will see a very rectilinear facade of design, and another side which is the becoming in the main visual frame is a very curvilinear way of design. But here you will see a strip window, which is kind of a strip or ribbon window, which is coming from a modernist movement, and a lot of pilotis, and which is hanging, the mass is hanging on top, which gives the anti-gravity look. But this angular facade which is breaking, which is not in the right angle with the other elements, you will that is not coming from the modernism. Now here, if you look at the visual, why this building's visual is so important, becoming a protagonist. Here there's a dynamic element which has a more punctuation, which is the staircase, which is the open staircase, which gives a punctuation, is balanced with this element, which is just a visual element. This does not have any function. And then also the rhythm and rhythm is maintained, so there's a more void and then as a solid thing, and then again there's punctuated with a void and then solid, and then void is balancing it. So and that is why this two becomes in the center, and within this interface there was this solidity is there. And also we will see a lot of this duality, solid void, and this is also duality, and then rectilinearity, curvilinearity, that is also duality. So these elements are added into the in his design. Also from the other side also you will see this solid and void is there, so very rectilinear as well as static design. If you look at this part, this is very static, and then it created a dynamic form in dynamic elements in the other side. Now also in this side you will see this kind of duality in his design. And in the same time, in the inside you will see extensive use of white, which is there, but within that interior as well there's a lot of elements, lot of different angles are added. So this ramp is creating a different inclination which is not horizontal. So there's horizontal, vertical, with horizontal and vertical line, there's angular lines are also adding. So here also this you will see these freestanding elements with these columns and these facades, which is just for aesthetic enhancement. So these are not solving a pure function, it's not coming from a pure functionalist approach. So within that, if you look at, so this his design, this is a particular style of elements he uses here in the interior as well as the exterior of his design. So you have also seen in the previous element where from the exterior the staircase also has this similar kind of railing. This has a similarity of the ship's white railing, which we see in the ship's on the deck, and this is used in his design, in Richard Mayer's design, extensively. And also in the inside you will see a lot of elements, but the unifying factor is the color, which is white. So everything is painted in this same white color, which subdues the complexity of the form. Now in the Jubilee Church of Rome, which is designed in the 2003, much later, has the duality of the design, and which also, and but here again the same white color is there. The similarity with the modernism is this elements, which is the steel and glass, which comes from the modernism, is there, and the white color, which also comes from the modernism. But if you look at the modernism is talking about this rectilinear elements, but there's a juxtaposition of lot of rectilinear element. So it's not a simplistic rectilinear element. Lot of different cuboids are amalgamating together, and they are creating this element, which is a manifestation of postmodern manifestation of a modernist approach. And on the other side you are seeing this curvilinear elements, which is balancing this rectilinearity from the other side, and these protrusions are purely for visual purpose. And also here you are seeing this rhythm and rhyme, which is again getting followed in the straight line on the other side. Now another example of Richard Mayer works is a Museum of Contemporary Art in Barcelona, Spain. Here also you will see these white railings in these areas, and also inside this building, which is the style of Richard Mayer's work, and white is the color which he uses from exterior to interior of this design. Now if you look at, so this is the glass curtain wall, which has a similarity with the internationalist way of design, and but one side of this glass curtain wall is the curvilinear form and the other side is the rectilinear form. And within the rectilinear form, if you look at these punctures and these elements, they are purely aesthetic elements. So these elements are just for aesthetic purpose, and the punctures has a different, it's not a simplistic rectangular puncture, so it some parts are added on the other side. So it's also things are added from a visual perspective and not following the concept of less is more. And the another architect in this era of New Modernism was John Hedgeduck. He designed 3 wall houses. Out of that, the second wall house was made, and this is made in the Netherlands. And he was designing this from during the 1970s, but it was built. He changed the design, and it was built in 2001. So in this, in his design also, there is a there will be you will see the blend of modernism with the postmodernism. Here in this design, if you look at, so this elements which gives the rectangle grey block which comes from internationalist modernism, and then ribbon windows and lifting the building on top of the ground, which is following the concept of pilotis, and also the grey elements are there. But on the both the sides, there are totally postmodern elements are there, but which is a manifestation of modernism and blended with the postmodernism. But here also you will see a ribbon window, but there is a curvilinear surface, and the color, which is orange, is not a pure color because it's a mixture of red and yellow. And also here, and this is the orangish pink, some color which is not a pure color. And then this yellow is also not a pure yellow, because pure yellow which Bauhaus and the digital movement use, that's the pure yellow. So there's a impurity in this yellow, and then purple and sap green was used. And here if you look at, so there are a lot of design elements are going on. So this is not a pure minimalist approach of dealing with modernity, but elements from modernism is coming within the design. So if you look at this design in plan, so it has a spine which is a modernist element. This is a freestanding wall, and because of this wall, this is called wall house. Most of all of his wall house has a wall, and then particular element and other wall on the other side, or some other and then the main visual elements, which is coming as a curvilinear wall on this background. All of this his 3 wall house has a similar concept, but the compositions are different. But in this design, if you look at the spine and this wall is from a modernist approach. So this wall is a grey concrete wall without any color, and then this is coming from a cuboidal element which has a strip window which is standing on, which is elevated, and the ground is not touched. So this is coming from a modernist approach, but on the other side there's a very free and liberal way of designing curvilinear wall on the both the side, which is opposing the style of modernism. Now if you look at the section, this is the section of the building, and this building, you will look at the modernist part is here, and this wall which looks modern, but it does not follow the modernist approach, because this is the non-functional. This wall does not have a function. It's like a visual element of it acts as a background of these 3 rooms. And if you look at these 3 rooms also has a strip window, but then the strip windows are carved and blended. And these 3 rooms also are coming from a modernist approach, which has an anti-gravity look and which will float. And so how he is achieving that, this if you look at this second floor's floor is not exactly the first floor's roof. There is a gap. So because of this gap, so as in the ground floor and first floor there is a gap, so because of this gap, this gives the anti-gravity look, and the horizontal band of solid solid and void, which is also there from coming from a modernist approach, but totally in the postmodern context. So if you look at this, so these elements which looks like a which has a ribbon window, but it's curved and twisted, and then different colors are there, which is so taking up a modern thing and making it a postmodern element is what new modern is. And also in this ribbon window, it's turned and twisted in a different direction, but this is the wall which which acts as a backdrop of this main visual composition. This has a lot of similarity with the modernist style, which is just a straight wall which is grey and not plastered concrete. So there's a freestanding 80 meter by 40 meter high wall, which is almost like a three-story height wall, which is exposed concrete and rectilinear wall. And then in the contrast, there's 3-story curvilinear walls with vibrant color, which is constructed as a free facade which is floating on top of each other and freely flowing and is curvilinear. Out of these, you can look at the other wall houses and you will see the similarity of the wall houses and how it was blending modernity with the postmodernist approach. The another neo-modern architect was Peter Eisenman, but Peter Eisenman's few of the architecture style also falls under another postmodernist movement, which is deconstructive style. So his deconstructive buildings are different, which will be discussed in the deconstructive movement, but many of his buildings are within the neo-modern style as well. So this is a cardboard house which is in Cornell in USA, which is designed in 1975, which is in the beginning of this postmodern era. This is he have designed a series of houses and these are called houses of cards, and this is called cardboard architecture or paper architecture, as it looks as a arrangement of different cardboard, which is like a 2D walls. And so this most of the elements, if you look at, does not look 3D. It's like arrangement of 2D cardboards, and he actually used to design this building as from a model, like he used to make the model using the cardboard first, and they have then he have designed it, and then he have changed it into a building. So we'll see how this was how his process, this process was the final design was a manifestation of this process. We'll see how this happened. And it came from a juxtaposition of different cardboard, which is 2D cardboard, and then finally he fitted the function. So form was before and then the function. So form was the main protagonist, so it went back and forth, form and function, but form was has its importance of form is quite high in this design. And all these elements which are added in front of this are cardboard. So these are the strips of cardboard which you have designed and then changed into the design. And then all these elements are looks like a 2D different cardboard, and the punctuation within the cardboard are added into the design element. So that's why this this design is called house of cards, or the cardboard architecture, or the paper architecture. The envelope and the structural elements are manifestation of the grids and slabs, which was these grids and slabs were translation from this cardboard which he have made in his initial models. This architecture is strictly plastic. No relationship was there in the construction and the pure it is purely ornamental. That's why when he is making the cardboard models and translating it into the construction in this element, so it started from the ornamentation on the aesthetic perspective, and then the functions were coming later, and the construction, and there was no connection with the construction. So a lot of areas you will see there was the dilemma with the construction and the elements which is coming within the design. So and the construction was not the main protagonist, and from it was not the starting point of the design. The starting point of the design is the visual and the juxtaposition of different cardboard elements. He called it a post-functionalism as he depicted it. So functionalism talks about the function, like the Bauhaus and Chicago School was functionalism, and this is post-functionalism, he called it. And so function comes later, and that's what he is talking about. So here in the postmodern era, the function follows form. It's not form follows function. So form comes first and then function. So here in this design, this is how he have designed it. So this is how the conceptual models, the sketches and the axonometry looks like, but he have made it with the cardboard. So some of the cardboard is coming through the building, and these grids are passing through the building. Now if we look at this side, this is the interior of this design. Many of the elements are not following each other. So this column and these beams and many of these elements, so there is a gap between this because he wanted this shift in the grid line. So these are not following of structural grid. So many of the grids are shifting from each other. It's not derived from a structural perspective, it derived from an aesthetic perspective, and the structure and form function was fitted into the form later. And there was different colors added into the design, which has some similarity with the modernist color within inside this interior, but from outside this is totally white. Now if we look at the Schroeder house, which is designed by Gerrit Rietveld, which was part of the Vestigial movement, there was a connection with that. Now in the Schroeder house, why Schroeder house was not exactly what was happening in the Bauhaus. Bauhaus and Vestigial was parallel, but Bauhaus approach and Vestigial approach was different, as we have discussed. Bauhaus was talking about the form will follow the function. So function will come first and then the form, and no extra element will be added. But Vestigial was an art movement. So in the Vestigial were Mondrian's paintings and other painters' painting was there, where it was coming from a visual perspective. So a lot of elements were added just for visual in the Rietveld house. That's why this is Vestigial building, not a Bauhaus building. And all these elements and the colors which is protruding out is a visual element. So you will see a lot of similarity with this. That is why this is new modern. It's not taking exactly the modern, but an offshoot of a modern, and which has a more visual perspective that they are taking. So there is no the relationship with this Peter Eisenman buildings with Bauhaus is lesser, but relationship with this two Vestigial is more, because Vestigial has a visual perspective, because it was coming from a visual design, art and design. Now inside this building, why this is not coming from a construction and functional process. If you look at the bedroom, so this column is not going through. So there's a punctures which is going from the roof and the wall, as well as in this floor. So if you look at the bedroom, so these two beds can never be clubbed together, because there's a void within the room, and there's a punctuation between these two beds. So this was just a manifestation of cardboard. So there was a punctuation of this card which he wanted this grid to pass through. So that's why he want if he is designing this bedroom, so there is this punctuation. He wanted to maintain the punctuation for the totally for the visual purpose, and not from coming from the functional aspect. And also here within this living room, these punctuations are giving the sense of this cardboard which was passing through this building. So as in the similar Schroeder house, you can see these lines which was coming from a Mondrian's from a painting which is similar to Mondrian's painting, and Schroeder house was a 3D translation of Bauhaus, Vestigial the art and craft, and Rietveld's chair is also there. So this partition wall is a is this line which follows these lines of Vestigial painting. So there is a similarity of the approach. He have also designed many other cardboard houses, and few of the cardboard houses were made. This is cardboard house 3 and this is cardboard house 10, and all these houses has a 2D elements with the assembly of 2D elements, and so it looks, and all these elements are assembly of this kind of cardboard. So he made everything with the cardboard, and then he translated it into the design. So it also has a so if you look at in totality, it has a this modernist approach of similar kind of design palette. So there is no curvilinearity added in his design, no curvilinearity, only the rectangular parts are there. But then it changed into the complexity, because he added many elements, and it was not modern minimalist thing, it became a postmodern design. And then because of this lot of elements which is coming, and then again it's not following the function, it's totally from the visual aesthetic. So this he's thinking about the solid and void, and then the relationship between these different elements, and how visually it will look good holistically. So in the next class we will discuss about few the other movements of postmodernism, and how they have the reaction, they are the reaction against modernism, and how they have taken inspiration from modernism. Thank you.